Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome into Stacking Dubs. I'm your host, Chris Chinn. It is officially the off season. The Boston Celtics are your champions. Congratulations, Boston, but not really. We can officially start looking at what the Warriors can and should do to get back to the top of the mountain and into championship contention. Everything we're hearing, we're seeing, it seems like they're posturing to make a big time trade from not renewing Klay Thompson and giving him an extension right away and basically telling him, hey, we're going to revisit and we want you back, but we need to explore other options right now to see what we can do. And then also bringing back Kevon Looney at his $8 million guaranteed deal. That is good salary to send out in a potential trade. Not that I want to lose Looney, but that is a good positive contract. And then we need to figure out what we're going to do with Chris Paul's $30 million expiring contract. That is the best vehicle that we have available to basically manipulate and send salary out to get an all-star caliber player, which, again, it seems like the Warriors are ready and hoping to do. So what we're going to look at today is the type of all-star or all-NBA player that I would want to pair with Steph. So we're kind of looking at what Steph's deficiencies are. We're looking at what has worked well when paired with Steph, and we're seeing if we can get all that packaged into one player to be the perfect Robin to Curry's Batman. Okay, so number one is Steph Curry, just like every star in the league, needs spacing. He needs to be surrounded with shooters. You've seen it in the past when the Warriors go small and he's surrounded by basically 5 out if we're calling Draymond Green a spacing 5 out option. That's when Steph Curry absolutely kills when we go small and he gets room to operate inside the arc. Steph Curry's undersized. He's under athletic. I'm not knocking him. He's getting older. I'm saying this because he needs room to operate. When he can get to the hoop and he can finish, get to the line, basically break down a defense, and then in turn create for others, that's when the Warriors are at their best. Steph Curry, last year, 51% on 2-point attempts, which is compared to his 59% career mark. What happened? We didn't have shooters. We didn't have spacing. Everything inside the key was contested. You saw a lot of it last year. Warriors missed so many shots at the hoop, not just Steph, but everybody. It's because the paint's clogged. There's so many bodies inside the key, and it's hard to finish. And without just a legitimate isolation mid-range score, it is very hard to score 2-pointers these days, unless you have spacing. So you saw it in the finals as well. Luka, Kyrie, role players weren't making threes. Celtics just collapsed the lane, put their bigs in drop coverage, and Luka and Kyrie were basically having to be heroic every time they scored on very tough contested mid-range and shots at the hoop. So you have to provide spacing. That doesn't just go for Steph, although it is especially important for Steph being undersized. It goes for every star in the league. You need room to operate. So I need someone that's going to be a spacer and a good 3-point shooter. Next option. Number two, shot creation. I need a player who can create his own shots, whether it's in isolation or however you want to score. I need someone who can create his own shot when things break down, when Steph Curry's off the floor. He needs to be a scorer. He needs to be someone that scores at least 20 to 24 points on their own. But more importantly, I need this player to create for others. I need someone that can get assists, that can see the floor, that keep the ball moving, somebody that's a playmaker with the ball in their hands. Those are the things. And when I give you my grades, I'm going to grade shot creation based on self-creation and then also creation for others. So number two, shot creation. And then lastly, number three, I need somebody that's going to be a point of attack defender. With Steph Curry on the roster being undersized, he cannot guard the best guards in the league, nor has he ever been able to. That's why it was so important to have a number two point of attack defender. It used to be Klay Thompson. It sort of was Andrew Wiggins, and now, or sorry, it was Andrew Wiggins, and now it's sort of Andrew Wiggins. Still great to have the Wiggins on the court. Klay can't do it quite as much anymore. So where are we going to find another point of attack defender who also isn't just a one-way defender like GP2? I need someone that can be a two-way player on offense, but also be a point of attack defender. The only exception to this is if you're not a perimeter defender, the Warriors can go get a shot blocker to kind of plug the gaps and plug the holes anytime there's penetration. The issue with that is now you're probably in a shot blocker adding a non-shooter, and that's really going to mess up our spacing unless you're just getting an elite level player. And we're going to assume that that's not possible. So the three things that I would look for in a running mate with Steph Curry: got to be able to shoot the three and provide spacing, got to be able to score and create for others, and then got to be a point of attack defender. Those are my three. We're looking at how those roles were filled for the Warriors championships in the past. Well, we kind of just talked about it. It was two-way Klay, right? When Klay was the number two option in the first couple championship runs, he obviously provided spacing. He, not as much as the shot creation aspect, but that's what we had Iguodala for. Iguodala was that extra ball handler, connector, basically another playmaker out there. And then Klay Thompson was a great point of attack defender. It also helped that we had Iguodala there too as a secondary point of attack defender. That's why the Warriors were so good. Then we moved to the KD era. I mean, it's pretty obvious. KD provides all of these. He can space, he can create for others, and he can play defense. I don't need to go into why Kevin Durant was great. And then as we go to our last championship, I guess it was, we could call Wiggins that number two, but it was really just a kind of a committee, and it really pieced it together where, Wiggins was that defender. He provided spacing because he was shooting well. He wasn't quite a shot creator, although he scored about 17 points per game in that playoff, in the 2022 playoffs. But it was kind of scoring by committee with Klay, Poole, a few different guys that could make it happen for us. So I think that is more to the tip of the hat to how good Steph Curry was that year without a true number two option and be able to still take home the trophy. Okay, so looking forward, right? I like to look back, but we got to look forward. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different all-star caliber players that are somewhat have been talked about being available and could work with the Warriors. So I'll start by saying, if you watch one of my episodes maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, I said I liked Brandon Ingram. And that was because I just thought he would be available, and he did fill the shot creation roles, and he was good length at the wing, but he's not the spacer. So I know the Warriors just aren't interested in Ingram. So what I'm gonna say is Ingram, I'll give him his grades, and then we're gonna move on. Spacing, I get Ingram on an A to F scale. I'm giving him a C, right? He shoots okay from three. He only takes like 4 attempts a game. Doesn't really provide true spacing. Shot creation for himself, B plus. He can isolate, he can score for himself. Shot creation for others, I'll give him a B. Averages about 5 assists, but it's kind of it's not quite drive and kick. It's a different creation. And then his defense, he's got some length, but we're going to give him a C. He's not a very good defender. So I'm kind of giving you that as a point of reference. Again, we're taking Ingram off the table here, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there because I want to just justify why I said him initially in the first place. I'm out on Ingram. Okay. Going forward, DeJounte Murray. So DeJounte Murray, it's going to be $25 million contract. He's on the Hawks. It's not working with Trae Young, so he might be available. He still has 3 years left on his contract. He's 28 years old. It'd have to be through trade, but it's an affordable contract. It might be like a Wiggins swap, or it might be a Chris Paul and picks swap. I like the idea of pairing DeJounte Murray at a decent salary and still being able to go get another big. I'll talk about that in just a sec. Why I like DeJounte Murray, sorry, not why I like him, let's just grade him. So look at spacing. DeJounte Murray last year, his spacing, 36% from three on 7 attempts. So that was his best year shooting the three. So it's getting better. If he's going to shoot 36%, I'll take it. His career, he's about a 34.5% career three-point shooter. So based on that, I'm going to give him a C plus in terms of the spacing he provides, especially as a combo guard. It's not quite good enough for me. In terms of creation, so for himself, pretty good scoring. He had 22.5 points. Was able to get to his mid-range a lot. He's quick. He's got a good handle. He can score for himself. I'm going to give him a B as a self-creator. And then he's a good point guard type guard where he averaged 6.5 assists last year. I'm going to give him a B plus in terms of creating for others. So on the shot creation part, that's where DeJounte thrives best. He's that extra ball handler. He would do pretty well with Steph Curry offensively and give just enough secondary playmaking and scoring. Defensively, his second or third year with the Spurs, he was a second team All-NBA defender. He hasn't been that since. He's looked a little disinterested defensively on the Hawks, but he's got good length, good athleticism. I'm going to give him a B with B plus potential based on what we've seen in the past. So all that being said, DeJounte, he would be nice. I wouldn't make him my first target, but if you can get him with a subsequent move of getting like a stretch big, right? If you have DeJounte, you're going to need to get a better big defender behind him to protect the hoop, and you're going to need some more spacing because he's not quite great there. So if you can pair him with, like, say, a Brook Lopez, now you're bringing in DeJounte and Brook Lopez. That's pretty good. I don't think it gets the Warriors into contention, but that's a solid second, maybe third round Warriors team with not as many holes, and we would kind of see how that works. But I like the balance of that team. Okay, moving on. Jimmy Butler. So a lot of rumors, maybe Jimmy Butler's available. $48 million this next year, and then he needs basically a max contract extension as a 35-year-old player who's had a lot of knee injuries, and he's played 55 games a season for the last 3 years. Pretty dinged up, but he's still Jimmy Buckets. He's just still that alpha, and in the playoffs, he's one of the guys that you wouldn't want many other players in the playoffs over Jimmy Butler. But let's take a look at him as a whole, and I'm going to give him a little inflation on some of my assessments because he's a different player in the playoffs, and that's obviously what we need. Spacing. He shot 41% last year, but he only took 2.5 attempts. He's never really shot threes. He tries to shy away unless he needs to shoot them. He shoots an okay percentage for his career, but not to the point where defenses are actually guarding him out on the perimeter. So I'm going to give him a C-. He really doesn't give you much spacing. Self-creation, I'm giving him an A. That he can go get whatever shot he needs in that mid-range. He's got that little turnaround. He can get to the hoop. Jimmy Butler can get to his spots as good as anyone in the league and find himself a good high percentage shot. Yeah, he only averages about 20 points per game. In the playoffs, that goes up, but I'm going to give him an A for self-creation. Creating for others, still very good. He's not quite a traditional, type of point guard type player or, an elite level passer, but because of the tension he draws, he can make the right passes when the defense is in rotation. 5 assists per game on average. I'm going to give him a B, potential B+. He's kind of flirting there. So all in all, he does create a lot for himself and then as well for others. Defense, this one's tricky at his age, at his health. It's hard to say, but if he's playing, if he's healthy enough, I'm going to give him an A-. He can guard basically 1 through 5 decently. Again, this all just depends on his health and his athleticism still. He used to be an A+ wing defender. I'm going to give him an A-, and that could drop as low as a B depending on kind of what effort we're getting from him. So all in all, Jimmy Butler, it's an expensive guy. He doesn't give you the spacing we need. If you think about if the Warriors had Steph, Jimmy Butler, Wiggins, or Kuminga, which would be way worse, and then Draymond and a big, there's no spacing there. That it just wouldn't work. You'd have to go to stretch 5 and play them. You couldn't play Kuminga. He would probably have to go out in a trade anyways, but you couldn't play them together. Just not enough spacing, and that would be a huge problem. That being said, I'd still take Jimmy Butler. That's the best we can get. Okay, moving on to the two that I like the most, kind of given certain situations. So Lauri Markkanen, right? Power forward, center, 7-footer that can shoot. He's only due $18 million. That's the real kicker here, and he's in the last year of his contract. He's 27 years old. You get him cheap for this next year. But after that, you're gonna have to max him out in the $40-50 million range. So, but we're just looking at next year for now. But that's part of it. For a big, Lauri Markkanen, 40% 3-point shooter on 8 attempts per game. He gets an A+ for the spacing he provides at his position. We talk about this 5-out approach. Lauri Markkanen is exactly what Steph Curry needs on the offensive end to let Steph cook. You got Lowry, you got Dre, basically you can both play outside the perimeter, and then whatever your wings are, that will give Steph the most room to operate. And I think Markkanen gives Steph the best chance to score as many points as Steph can. I don't know if it makes our offense as good as say, the next player I'm going to mention, but Markkanen really does provide a huge offensive boost and just gives the Warriors in general much more spacing and shooting. So he's going to get an A+ on spacing. Creation. Again, this is kind of for his position. So I haven't seen a ton of Lowry marketing, so I'm kind of going off stats and just kind of what I've seen just loosely. Creation, I'm giving him a B. You know, he scores about 23 points. He scored, I think, 25 points 2 years ago. So he can find ways to score. A lot of it is living out the perimeter and just using his size. He's not the guy that's going to break you down and break down and collapse a defense and put them into rotation, but he can get his shots and he can basically carry a load as a mid 20-point scorer. I'm giving him a B. As far as including others and creating for others, I'm going to give him a C. Only about less than 2 assists per game. If he's getting double, he's not really a post player. And if that was the case, then he can kind of pass out of it like Jokic. That's not really his game. He's not quite an assist playmaker guy. He's more of a scorer. I'm going to give him a C, C minus. I haven't really, again, seen enough of him, but I'm going to call it a C. Defensively, it is great to have some size. It's great to have a 7-footer. He only averages half of a block per game for his career. He doesn't really give you that much presence at the hoop. And if I have a big coming in, that's what I need there. I'm going to give his defense a C. He, for his size, can stay in front of some of the quicker players in the league decently well. Again, just that lack of rim protection doesn't quite do it for me. So for all those things, Lowry, that spacing is really what you're chasing here, and that contract, right? Because of that $18 million contract, now I can go pair and go get another 3-and-D combo guard. So I'm talking about a guard that can be a menace point of attack defender, and then it can provide some spacing as a 3-point shooter. You get something like that. Now, let's talk about, like, say, just for example, KCP, right? I'm just off the top of my head. He's not available, but you get a great defender. He can shoot the 3, space the floor. Now you have Markkanen at that 5. You've got all sorts of spacing. The defense is good. It's not great. The problem is, I don't know if you have enough ball handling and enough to take the load off Steph basically being the engine to every play. So for that reason, Markkanen, I will definitely start there, but it would depend on how we fill in the roster around him, which leads me to our last player. And I think you all know who it is. His name's been at the top of everything lately. It's Paul George. $48 million, going to need a max extension after this year. He is probably, from what I'm hearing, going to opt into the last year of his player option for the Clippers and then say, hey, I'm not playing for you. You need to trade me. I don't know if he's going to say to which teams or have a list of teams, but just say hypothetically, he says, Clippers, trade me to the Warriors. That's what we want, guys. He, again, is on his last year of his contract, so he would need a max extension following this year, but he's 34 years old, so has a lot of runway. He's been relatively healthy and still looks definitely a little fresher than like a Jimmy Butler at a similar age. Let's give him his grades. Spacing, Paul George, 41% last year from 3, 8 attempts per game. That is just lights out. That's better than Steph Curry was last year on less attempts. 38.5% for his career. I'm going to give Paul George an A- on spacing. If he was closer to 40% for multiple years, that would get him up to an A. But that is all the spacing that I need with Steph Curry and co. Creation, self-creation, go get your own shot, find ways to score, you get an A. Creation for others, 3.5 assist guy, although the 3-year last year, but the 3 years before that, 5 assists per game. Kind of just depends on the offense. I think in the Warriors offense, he'd be up closer to 5, maybe even 5.5 assists. I'm going to give him a B with the possibility of that becoming a B plus. He's kind of a wing scorer, not necessarily a playmaker, but he can definitely play make. And then lastly, his defense. Well, early in his career, he would be an A+ defender, every position. At one point was the only guy in the world that could slow down LeBron James when he was with the Pacers. But I'm going to give his defense an A- only because he's getting a little older. It's been a little drop off, maybe just because every time I watch him, he's trying to guard Steph Curry and is getting cooked. I'm going to give him an A-, and obviously that can be an A when asked to be in the right role. I just think Paul George can be a point of attack defender, and he can get switched onto any of the big and hold his own. Paul George is the perfect fit outside of Kevin Durant or LeBron James for the Warriors. A great player, would work well with Steph, doesn't need the ball, has coexisted with other superstars for the last few years. Low maintenance star, great locker room guy. He's just been stuck on the stinking Clippers. And the other thing I like is the Clippers. What I've been hearing is that the Clippers are interested in a Chris Paul reunion. So that Chris Paul $30 million contract is something that the Clippers see value in. Now you send off Chris Paul's 30 million. You probably, depending on the leverage, right? You have to probably attach Kuminga. If for whatever reason Paul George says, I am only going to the Warriors, opting in, you have to trade me to the Warriors. You might be able to hold Kuminga and just give up Wiggins instead. But let's assume we're giving up Kuminga. And then some other sort of filler, like a Looney, maybe Moody, maybe GP. And I don't think we'd have to give up picks, but again, it depends on the context. Throw in the picks. I don't even care. Whatever you got to do to get Paul George, that's what we would need. So what the lineup would look like if and when we get Paul George. Okay, we're going to leave Clay out of this for now. We're going to call Clay to be determined. So you're looking at Steph Curry at the point. If you have Clay back, great. He's your two. But you're probably looking at a combination of Wiggins and Paul George on the wings. You have Draymond at the 4. That's your core right there. Curry, Paul George, Wiggins, Draymond. And then you can kind of pick your matchups on what you want. You could put Pajemski in there just as a connector and someone that's kind of all around energy and just kind of gives you a little bit of everything, especially if that shooting gets better, gives you another ball handler, gives you some defensive presence. We'll see how he improves over the offseason, but I do like Pajemski just in general. You could go big, play TJD there and play with 2 bigs. And basically, you're going to have Dre and TJD as non-shooters, but that lineup did work last year. It was pretty good. So if you want more defense and some more size, you can put TJD as the 5th there. If you have Clay, again, you can, and you want to just go for pure spacing, Clay's your guy. Or that's, XYZ free agent, probably either a big, if we're going to go get just a big body, it's kind of a role player, or it's just whatever other free agent you have money for at the end of all this. We wouldn't have much, but if you want to stay under that second apron, you're probably going to be pretty limited, but we'll see what kind of magic Mike Dunleavy can work. That team right there. So Curry, Paul George, Wiggins, Draymond. Let's say Clay comes back, then you got a bench of Pods, TJD, Gary Payton, and others. That's a competitive team, guys. I'm just thinking how that matches up with, we'll just jump ahead to the Celtics. The wings can match up. You have the best player on the court and maybe the best 2, in my opinion, in Curry and probably a Paul George. You're athletic. You can defend. You can shoot. I like it, guys. And it's most importantly enough to take off enough of stuff off Steph Curry's plate to let him be fresh. Curry still got it. It's just like LeBron, you got to pick and choose his spots. You keep him fresh enough and someone else can handle the load. Now you're going to get a top 2-3 player in the NBA in crunch time when it matters most. All right. So guys, in conclusion, let's go get Paul George. I like it. All right, I'll start to put a few more of these going. We got some momentum going. I appreciate all of my new viewers. We're really getting a lot more views and momentum going to our audience here. So I'm gonna start putting more out, especially as free agency kicks in. So I'm excited, guys. Let's get rolling into summer and let's start the process of the comeback to a championship. All right, until I see you guys next time, I have been Chris Chinn. Peace, love, and stacking dubs.